Welcome to the deep dive. What if we told you that many common things babies go through, things often dismissed as just, well, part of being a baby, are actually early warnings? Warnings about something potentially serious in their environment.
That's a really provocative starting point, isn't it?
It is. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something often overlooked: the air infants breathe right from their very first moment. We're drawing heavily from infant air purity, the foundation of healthy development.
Yeah, the authors, Fuchi Wu and they lay out this really compelling case. It forces us to rethink how we protect our youngest.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack why infants are apparently so uniquely vulnerable to air pollution. We want to understand the hidden dangers, maybe in their own nurseries.
And explore how creating this pure breathing space isn't just a nice to have, but maybe foundational. Foundational for their whole lives, and maybe even, as the source suggests, for humanity's future.
It's a big claim. Let's dive in. So where do the authors begin? They seem to tackle a common belief head on.
They really do. They start by dismantling this deeply ingrained idea that infants are just naturally delicate, prone to illness. Like, it's just how babies are.
Right, that some are just born with a weaker constitution.
Exactly. But the sources are incredibly explicit on this point. Infants are not inherently weak. That's not the starting point.
Okay, wow, that definitely goes against the grain. So if it's not some inherent fragility, what is the true culprit right from that first breath?
Air pollution. Plain and simple, according to these authors, the air itself. For many, many infants, the air they breathe from moment one is already, well, polluted.
And what kind of pollution are we talking about here?
From that very first gasp, their tiny lung sacs, the alveoli, they get exposed to what the source calls a toxic cocktail. Think acids, alkalis, these incredibly small ultrafine particles, and various chemical gases. And what's really alarming is how fast these things get in. They enter the bloodstream through the lungs and just spread throughout the baby's entire tiny body almost immediately.
Okay, and this is where the infant vulnerability really comes into play, right? Their bodies handle this differently than ours?
Massively differently. Their immune systems are still immature, their metabolic defense capabilities, they're just nowhere near an adult's level.
Yeah.
So these toxins don't just pass through or get neutralized easily.
They build up.
They rapidly accumulate. It's not a subtle difference. The source frames it as a profound, unique vulnerability.
So if these toxins are building up so quickly, how does this actually show up? What are these early warnings the source mentions?
Well, because of this physiological immaturity, the symptoms can appear much, much earlier and more often than you might think. We see it in things parents know all too well: asthma, rhinitis, eczema, atopic dermatitis. Really common infant conditions.
Okay.
But the crucial link the source makes is that these aren't just minor issues or bad luck or, oh, it's just his constitution. No, they argue these are, and this is a direct quote, the earliest warnings that toxins are building up unchecked.
It's like their body is basically screaming for help, but we're maybe misunderstanding the message.
That's exactly the implication. We're missing the signal, mistaking it for something else entirely.
That really reframes things. So if these common issues might be signals, how do parents figure this out? Especially, when a baby's just crying and you've checked everything else.
Right, those moments of sheer helplessness. You've fed them, changed them, checked for fever. Nothing works.
The source proposes something pretty startling here: the infant crying test.
An infant crying test. Okay, tell me more. What's the idea?
The idea is simple, really, but maybe counterintuitive. If your baby is crying a lot and you've ruled out all the usual suspects, hunger, diaper, illness, the very next thing you should consider is the environment, specifically the air.
So what does the test actually involve? What do you do?
You move the infant into a room that has air conditioning, crucially, one that also has effective air filtration running. Then you just observe carefully.
Now, what are you looking for? What's the expected outcome if air quality is the issue? The sources describe a potentially dramatic shift. Less crying, noticeably smoother breathing. The baby might actually be able to settle and sleep peacefully.
Wow.
And they make a bold claim about this. They say this observable change is, and again I'm quoting, the most direct proof. Air pollution is the cause of the distress. It's presented as a clear demonstration, almost like a little home experiment.
That's incredibly direct, and it connects to this concept they talk about: creating an air paradise-like room, or hukucha, human paradise.
Exactly. They suggest if you could put an infant in such an environment, the positive changes would be even more obvious. Parents could literally witness firsthand the decisive impact of air on health.
It really drives home the responsibility, doesn't it? If the solution could be that tangible.
It absolutely does. And this leads right into something the authors call a parents must follow instruction. It's very direct.
Okay, what's the instruction?
If an infant's bedroom window faces a road, any road with traffic, that window must be kept tightly closed. Always. No exception.
Tightly closed, always.
Yes. The source uses really strong language here. It says, every minute the window is open is equivalent to directly feeding toxic gas into the infant's respiratory tract.
Whoa, that's a visceral image. Directly feeding toxic gas. Okay, so any parent hearing that would immediately seal that window. Makes perfect sense. But wait, doesn't sealing everything up create another problem?
You've hit on the exact dilemma. It creates a new hidden danger.
Right.
When you seal the windows and doors tightly, maybe just running the AC for temperature,
Yeah.
fresh air can't get in.
Right, so
Carbon dioxide starts to build up inside the room, and at the same time, the oxygen levels continuously drop. The result, a state called hypoxia, oxygen deprivation.
oh no.
Yeah.
So you solve the pollution problem but create an oxygen problem. That sounds bad, especially for a baby.
It's extremely dangerous. The source emphasizes that developing infant brains are extremely sensitive to hypoxia. Even moderate prolonged oxygen deprivation, not necessarily severe, just consistently lower levels, can lead to brain nerve damage.
permanent damage.
And potentially permanent sequelae, yes, lasting consequences. So, in trying to protect them from toxins, you could inadvertently expose them to something else that causes serious, irreversible harm. It's a terrifying catch-22 for parents.
Absolutely. Feels like an impossible choice. Seal the room and risk hypoxia, or open the window and risk pollution.
Oh,
How do the sources propose getting out of this bind? Is there a way to achieve both? Protection from pollution and enough oxygen?
Thankfully, yes. The authors don't just present the problem, they outline a very specific two-pronged strategy. They're clear that you need both parts. One alone won't cut it.
Okay, dual solution. Let's break that down. What's the first part? Pollution removal, I assume.
Exactly. That's where the Renji and Shaoshentang, the human paradise system, comes in. Its job, as the source states, is removing pollution from the air inside the room. That's the filtration aspect.
Okay, that makes sense. Filter out the bad stuff. But what about the oxygen problem in that sealed room? How is that addressed?
That's the crucial second part. It's a component called Anshui Shaoshantang, or peaceful sleep paradise. And here's what's really interesting. The source explicitly says it is not a filter.
Not a filter. What does it do then?
It's not there to remove toxins. Its sole mission, according to the text, is to continuously supply sufficient oxygen. It's designed to bring fresh, oxygenated air into the sealed room without letting the outside pollution in.
Ah, I see. So one system cleans the air that's in the room, and the other constantly brings new, clean, oxygen-rich air into the room.
Precisely, they work together. The human paradise cleans, the peaceful sleep paradise supplies oxygen.
It's a complementary system.
Totally. And the source really hammers this point home, concluding, only by combining the two can infants be protected from both poisoning and oxygen deprivation during sleep. It stresses that neither one is truly effective on its own for total protection.
Okay, that makes sense. You need the full package. But, the authors don't just stop at solving immediate problems, do they? They take this much further.
They really do. The insights extend way beyond just immediate safety. They introduce this concept of infancy as being like a blank slate.
Yeah, I found that part fascinating. This idea that a baby's body hasn't yet built up those deep-seated toxins that adults carry around, making it this absolutely critical time for shaping a lifelong constitution.
It suggests the stakes are much, much higher than just preventing colds or eczema in the first year. It's about the foundation for their entire life's health trajectory.
So what's the long-term vision here? If you do provide this air paradise-like environment right from birth, what happens?
The argument is that the infant's key systems, respiratory, immune, metabolicable, they get to develop without toxic interference. Imagine that, growing up without that constant low-level assault that most people experience.
Uninterrupted development.
Exactly. A fundamentally different and presumably healthier developmental path.
And what does that look like decades down the line? What kind of adults do these children potentially become, according to the source?
Well, the outcomes they describe are pretty significant. We're talking about children growing up with significantly lower accumulated toxin levels compared to average. This leads to a delayed onset of age-related or environmentally triggered dysfunction. Organ damage is postponed.
So healthier for longer?
Essentially, yes. They suggest these individuals will possess the most excellent constitution, a kind of baseline strength and resilience that's maybe rare today.
Okay, now here's where it gets really, really big picture. The source makes this incredibly bold claim, connecting this clean air environment for babies to human evolution.
Yeah, that's definitely the most visionary part of the argument.
Hmm.
They propose that providing this environmental purity, starting from infancy, isn't just about individual health. It could be, and this is their phrase, the starting point for a non-mutated new human evolution.
Wow, okay. How do they make that leap from a clean nursery to changing human evolution?
Well, the logic, as presented, is sort of generational. If each generation starts life exposed to far fewer environmental toxins, if their bodies develop more optimally, then the burden of these accumulated deep-seated toxins reduces over time.
So less damage gets passed on or accumulated early?
Kind of. The idea is that over successive generations, you could theoretically cultivate a human population that is fundamentally healthier, constitutionally stronger, less susceptible to chronic illness and environmental stresses. This, they argue, could represent a positive evolutionary shift driven not by genetic mutation in the usual sense, but by optimizing the developmental environment.
It's certainly a monumental claim, a speculative but really thought-provoking long-term vision.
Definitely provocative. It really broadens the scope from individual parental choices to potential species-level consequences.
This whole deep dive, it just forces a major rethink, doesn't it? The core message seems to be, stop thinking of infants as inherently fragile.
Right. The sources frame them instead as potentially the earliest victims of the pollution we've created. That really shifts the perspective and the responsibility.
It puts the onus squarely on us, doesn't it, as parents, as a society. It suggests our responsibility goes way beyond just food, warmth, and love.
Absolutely. Providing a non-toxic breathing environment emerges as this foundational requirement. It's something critical for lifelong health that maybe we haven't given enough weight to.
And the stakes, if we don't address this, the source is pretty blunt.
Very blunt. It warns that if this toxic exposure continues unchecked during infancy, those dysfunctional symptoms will eventually cross a saturation point, and that leads to irreversible organ damage.
Ooh.
And they add, quite somberly, by then, regret will be too late. It's a stark warning about the consequences of inaction during that critical early window.
So what's the final word, the ultimate takeaway for someone listening?
The authors are unequivocal. They state that the only way to save infants is to completely block the source of toxins right from the beginning. Let them grow in pure air from day one. It's presented as an urgent call to action with a specific path forward.
It really leaves you thinking. If the air we provide right at birth in those very first days and months can genuinely shape not just our own child's health trajectory, but potentially, as these authors argue, the future course of human development. Well, what kind of responsibility does that place on every single one of us? And what does clean air truly mean, not just for today, but for the future we're building?
That's definitely something to ponder, a heavy thought to end on.